Hello, everybody, and welcome to Metaphysical Insights. I'm your host, William Becker, and this week I'm also my own guest. I know it sounds weird, but hey, weird's part of the charm of the show sometimes. Um, Actually, I've been doing a lot of sitting and thinking and a bunch of different ideas about energy, good and evil. A lot of it isn't new, some of it is, some of it's just new in its way it mingles together. All of these are thoughts that are still forming. I'm not saying I'm taking an absolute position on anything at this point, because it's all a work in process. And I encourage everybody who has comments to add to the discussion to go ahead and type them in. And when I get a chance to show them without interrupting my train of thought too badly, because I get derailed so easily, I will do so. And everybody else can read them and comment back and forth anyway in the chat. So, welcome. This show may be very short. It may go a little longer, but it's good to have you all here. And I see Eric has already said hello, and I appreciate it. Hi, Eric. Um, okay, how how does all this start? How does all this work? Energy is such a major part of metaphysics. It's such a major part of paranormal. A lot of people are talking about it these days. Mostly people who have a lot of good intentions, but no real science backgrounds. And I have a science background to a degree, but it's limited. I have a bachelor's of science in history, but it's in history. It's not in mathematics or in physics or astrophysics or anything else. So uh, I am in no ways an expert on this. Um, and I don't think we can be because we're looking at the metaphysical aspect of all of it too. And part of the idea that I've been looking at, let's see if I can make this even slightly coherent, is we've got such a polarized world, and I'm not going to get political. That's not what these shows are for. Um, if you want politics, you can read my personal Facebook page, my Para Insights Facebook page, and Paranormal Insights Twitter and no, not Twitter. I don't have that. Yeah, Instagram and X, whatever they are. Those aren't political, but my personal one can be. Um, but and then as a history major and a student of history, I don't call myself a historian. I don't have any. I don't have the depth of the fields, and I haven't done enough of the disciplines and such to even consider myself an amateur historian. Um, but I've been a student of it all my life, and I we look at okay. We've got the religious wars, so much going on right now. The good and evil that's coming through in name, or at least an indication, in so many different laws. And I'm not going to get political here, but so much of this goes back to an idea of concept. And the early churches, the monotheistic Judeo Christian Abrahamic religions, took religion that was already in place. Now, the Abrahamic came much later. I think it was about 633 before. Islam was pretty much fully developed into a more organized um, religion and process. I think Muhammad was born about 580s AD. Um, my dates are a little might be a little off, but they're close. Um, and what the other religions, Judaism slowly, and then Christianity, have done is they took the gods of the Mesopotamians and gave the names of those gods. They gave the names to demons. They started calling them demons, and this is a way of changing um, the evolution of a religion over time. And with Judaism, you can see the process going between Yahweh being the God of gods, the most powerful, to being the only. And it's a process. Um, if you read historically and a good study annotated scripture Bible with um, a good recent translation of that goes back to original sources and blah blah blah, and have a good understanding of the literary styles of the periods that are being explored and developed, and when different aspects were put down. And I know it gets complicated, but it's the way it kind of works. And then it's the same kind of a thing. The churches, Christian especially, Judaism not as much because originally they had the one center of worship in Jerusalem. But Christianity has taken pagan sites and made them Christian, and um, it's a way of taking converting people gently in a sense because they've been used to going to the festivals and everything there, and then the church would just change the names of or even keep the names in some degree, some cases, but change the meanings, but keep them um, oriented towards the same idea. A lot of Judaism and Christianity. I'm sorry, I don't know as much about Islam. The holidays, the rituals, whatever, are very much from the sun gods, the harvest. Um, that's the origin of so much of it. That was just then modified and turned into what is appropriate for this current religion. And the religions themselves are benign. And yes, this relates to energy or neutral. They're just, it's a thing. They are, in my opinion, constructs to explain the world, um, especially to people who didn't have the science to explain the world, how things work, but also to build a social and cultural cohesion so that more advanced cultures could develop and live together. You've got to have some kind of a common um, a common central focus on some kind of a behavior patterns, law, morality. How do we get along as society? What's okay? What isn't okay? Because those are kind of arbitrary in some sense. We don't think of it that way, but actually, they are kind of arbitrary. They are just ideas or things that they then get used one way or the other. And when religion is used this way, can be a very positive thing. Even now, so much good is done by all the religions as far as working for peace, even though so many wars are done in the name of religion. There's always a peace aspect or element in all those religions. Social justice work, feeding the poor, um, helping to elevate people. And they're also used to subjugate anybody that's different and um, terrorize people. I mean, you get both ends of all religions, and that sets up its own kind of an energy too, and it's developed out of the energy of the people around them, their own thought process. It's like, okay, we're going to use this to uplift people, or we're going to use this to control people, or we're going to use this to abuse people. And along with the abuse usually comes control, um, because they are good ways also to um, set up an autocratic form of government. And a lot of places have used that. In this country, we're working hard to not let that happen again. Um, and our Constitution was deliberately set up so that religion was not supposed to have a part in governance. It's even those who would answer to the term that we would use as Christian now knew that whose form do you use? You have different people with different belief systems, even though they all profess to the same basic religion and God. And so then when you get the others coming in as well, I mean, because our Constitution is even set up for the Jews and the Muslims to have a place and be able to be safe practicing religion. Um, and the idea is you don't force yours on other people. That's all. Um, and the energy that we put out has an effect on that. Okay, now I know I'm getting a bit lost and scrambled here, but let me see if I can turn this a little bit more around. We are true energetic beings, and they say that energy can't be created or destroyed. I'm not sure about that, honestly. Um, it can be transformed, which we see all the time. I mean, take a nuclear explosion or most explosions, you've got energy that's contained in one moment and then released and going into some kind of a reaction at the next. And so there's a transference of a sort that way. I think we also transfer our energy can transfer the beings that are around us, the metaphysical beings. Um, there's so often cases where I've worked with people who have felt like they had this real dark, horrible thing in their house or whatever, and often changing the energy of the house makes a difference. Open the window shades, let the sunshine in, bring in happier, lighter colors or brighter colors. Keep dark, angry music, television plays away. Um, keep arguments and fights outside. Keep them out of the house. Just bring in the positive energy. And we all feed off of energy from other beings. And these beings in the house off or the office or whatever often do the same way. They feed off of what we put out and are attracted by what we put out. And if we've got an entity that likes the the meaner side, I'm not going to say evil because I don't think pure evil exists. There are no devils or demons in my opinion. There are a lot of pretty nasty beings and people out there, um, but it's not a pure evil. It's not what we think of as a demon or a devil. But if you replace the energy in that house, with something that being doesn't like, it's either going to change the nature of the being or that being's going to just go away. And they will try sometimes to create more difficulty to uh, if they like a chaotic, dramatic, tense, angry situation, they'll try to create that environment. And if that doesn't work for them, they'll either change or they'll go. And if you've already got that lighter, happier, loving, whatever terminology you want to use, energy in the place, you're more likely to draw in beings that feed off of that, or those that are already there will become and conform more like that. Um, I'm going to just caution here, this is all speaking in generalities. There are individual cases that are different. And when we're talking about more of a cosmic picture of so much of this, it's a little different than dealing with individual people sometimes or individual beings. So I'm putting out there thoughts and ideas on a more global, universal um, level or concept, but the reality working individually has different nuances sometimes. And I'm not saying that the properties aren't similar. It's just, I think the way we work with them can be um, um, different. And I know that probably doesn't make much sense, but bear with me. Maybe we'll clear things up a little bit more. And you're all helping me write a paper because I've got something I've been wanting to put out for quite a while, and I've been struggling with it, and that's part of why I'm doing this. Um, gives me a chance to think out loud. um, and so when we're working on a more cosmic level, I definitely think that we tune into and tap into an energy. And people talk about shifts in the energy field and different things. Um, honestly, I'm not sure that I notice them very much. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm sure they do. Um, I just don't necessarily pick on upon them because my brain's reeling off in so many different directions all the time. It's a little difficult sometimes to actually pick up on subtleties. But um, how we react to a species or as a species and the energy that we create as a species can affect a lower level type of an energy field. And this is part of what I think we feel when conflict is increasing or decreasing around the world. This is something that is planetary, um, but it's not universal. It doesn't affect the cosmos, or the general consciousness or unconsciousness of life and reality, the universal collective as a whole. That just is, and it seems to be a neutral y- place, yet one of love. We progress and transform our own energy to a point of being our own complete, whole, complete, and mature self, our individual being, before we get to that place. And, people talk about, in some cases, we just merge into nothingness with it. I don't think that's true either. I feel like we become part of that greater, but there's still a piece of the individual little spark that's there as well. And so we are at one with all in those cases, but we are also our own our own true self as well in a pure energetic form. Um, does that make sense? I hope so. And I'm perfectly happy for constructive criticism in all of this too, or like I say, other people's ideas. I don't want to get into arguments um, or whatever, but this is a it's a conversation, um, and so basically, what we bring to that deeper universal is something that's already been purified by lifetimes on this planet and past lives in a lot of ways. Great, thanks, Eric. Um, and so, what we do here affects a, a different kind of reality, and it's to be honest, it's the kind of reality that helps dictate whether or not bombs are going to fall and um, whether climates are going to change more drastically or not, or because it can influence human behavior. I think it's human behavior influencing that energy, create changing energy, but at the same time, then that changed energy also works on human behavior unless humans are aware and pay attention and work on not letting that happen. And that opens up another piece. Part of what I've been doing too is just looking at responsibility. And um, oh, I had this down brilliantly the other day, and now I've forgotten what I had. But we are not responsible for what other people do. We are responsible, and again, this is in generalities. We are responsible for our response and reaction to what other people do, to us, around us, to others, whatever. And we, it's important to stand up to what's wrong, but there are ways of doing that that are, I don't know, more direct, more energy pure. Um, I don't like that word. It makes it sound like good or bad, better than. Uh, nah, I'll have to rethink that the way of describing that a little bit because I don't want to make it judgmental, even though judgmental is part of that in a sense where wrong needs to be stood up against and righted if possible. Um, but you choose what to spend the energy on and what not to. I live in an area where there's a lot that doesn't go right, and it's not going to make any difference. So I don't do too much. I do a lot, but it has not a lot to do with the power structures. It does more to do with history. Um, no, actually, that's all it has to do with is history. But that's good. Um, I digress. Um, so, where was I? Okay, we've got the idea of being responsible for ourselves, and that includes the energy that we put out. And um, yeah, Eric, you're right, absolutely. And part of that is that right way and wrong way can vary situation to situation. You don't start out with somebody who disagrees with you by having a shouting match, nobody's going to listen. So why? Listen to people, try to understand where they're coming from and why they think the way they do. Look for some commonality. Often the goal, the idea that they're looking for at the end of it is very comparable to what we might be looking for. So try to build a little bit of a rapport and an understanding of each other. But the other person has to be willing to do that as well and has to be willing to talk about ideas and where these things come from, not just sound bites. And if you're going to get to a point where the conversation isn't going to be fruitful, just end it. And you can end it reasonably nicely. Not, I mean, it doesn't always work that way, and I don't always work that way. Um, I had somebody the other day tell me they come to me to learn how to be mean, and thought it was pretty funny. I liked it actually, in a sense, because I wasn't. They didn't mean it like I'm a bad person. It was more like I can be a little bit more direct in a nicer way and stand up for myself. It's the getting to a point where you don't put up with a lot, but you can do it in a way that isn't destructive. Um, Hopefully that makes some sense. So, the tangents come, the tangents go, the center of thought gets lost in the midst. Um, but that part of that conversation, though, is the energy that we put out to people. If we approach somebody looking like we're interested in what they have to say or why they have to say what they have to say, they're going to be more receptive to us and less hostile as well, as a rule. Um, it just makes sense. I see people post on social media all the time about all the troubles they have with bad drivers around or customer service or rude people in stores or lines or whatever. And I think I don't understand. I have that occasionally, but it's pretty rare um, for me. So either I don't focus on it very much, or I'm not um, in places where it happens as much, or that kind of energy doesn't come to me as much. And that's all part of the lesson that we learn. It's what we put out can help make a difference in that which comes back to us or what's around us. And again, not all the time, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like some saint or something else. I'm not. Trust me. Ask all my friends. Ask my sister. Um, um, but it's it's a part of how we approach the world in the energy we put into that approach. And what I'm doing more of in my ripe old age, this white hair is natural. It used to be brown. And I've earned every strand of white. Thank you very much. Um, is but what I'm learning is to um, examine myself and my own motivations more. Where am I coming from? Where are my responses coming from? Um, the years of therapy, even though it was several years ago, are still paying fruit. And it's just part of the process. But again, we don't beat ourselves up for what didn't go right. We use in our past or decisions we made that were the best we could have made at the time with the information we had and the circumstances, even though they may not have been a very good decision, and better ones might have been available at the time. We just didn't get it. So you don't beat yourself up, you learn. And even for things that happen now, we hold ourselves accountable. We screw up, we take accountability for it, we admit it, and learn from it and move on. We don't go around kicking ourselves for forever. That's counterproductive and builds us into an energy hole that's not healthy for us or our reactions to other people. And it keeps pulling us down more and more and more. So the whole concept of energy isn't just about how we're approaching life and other people. It's also about how we approach ourselves. And being able to love ourselves is a big part of being able to be loving to others and to the world and to the universe. Because it's not just about people out there, there's so much more. And I want to give another little example here, too. And I've talked about this before, but it fits with the energy piece. Um, I've been very fortunate. I've gotten to do quite a lot of traveling. And I'm missing it right now. So send send cash. My travel budget's empty. I've got places to go, but need the cash to go there. Anyway, I'm teasing. I'm not about needing the cash to go, but no, I'm not asking for money. Um, but part of what I've seen in many of these places too is the reaction of energy and ritual sites that have gone back thousands and thousands of years. And so you've got Mesolithic and Neolithic peoples doing ceremony in a site that is then taken over by Bronze Age ritual on up through Iron Age, then the Romans and their gods, and then we get the Anglo-Saxon and originally the Romans and then Christianity, and then you get the Anglo-Saxons, you go back and lose some of the Christianity, then you get it again. But you see all this stuff, and I can go there and I can watch the different periods and the places that it takes us and where that energy goes and what it is the same. They don't. I've only been to one or two places where there was um, combativeness, kind of between the feel of the religions, and it was Christianity against everybody else. And it was just because there was too much of a self righteousness with the Christianity that was there to understand. And it didn't have the ritual done the same way. And I've been to ritual that, when done right, does take to these places, including a good Catholic Mass, but they're not necessary. You don't need the ritual to go to those spiritual places. We have that ability and we have that energy. Just tapping into it and going deep inside us, that's where a lot of that resides. And it's inside us, but what's inside us is a place that's also outside us and that we can't see. It's like another dimension, is the way I describe it. But I go back, digress again. Part of what I was going to talk about with this is when you're looking at the type of energy you're putting out, you're feeding different kinds of beings too. Now, there are lots of places in the UK, for example, that have a lot of traditions that go back and include what we would often consider to be mythical figures. I know that many of them aren't because I've had actually visual sightings with them. And to be clear, I don't do hallucinogenics. I don't do recreational drugs. That's not a statement about whether or not anybody else should. It's just me. The meds I do take don't cause hallucinations. I just put this out there because this isn't something that's created chemically or whatever. I'm really seeing these things. Is the point I'm making. Um, and some of them have a deeper connection to the earth and some to a deeper connection to the universe. Some of them are lighter, the party giving kind. And I've just used the one place. There's this wonderful place over by Tintagel called St. Nectan's Glen. I believe that's or what it is. And there's just a little pull off you see on a road that's barely wide enough for the car. Um, and a well that's there, and then this pathway you can follow. It's quite a long path, actually, along a stream, and you wind up at top, and there's a metaphysical shop there, of course. Um, and the the um the the rock cell, kind of like a little cave where the saint lived for many years, and preached and taught, and he also was a lookout for Vikings and different things, I believe. But then you have to pay to go down, but you can go down to an area that has the riverbed or the stream bed and an amazing waterfall that's two stages. For those of you in the Portland area, kind of like how Multnomah Falls is, where you have one stage you come down and then another one and down again. Only the it flows through an arch that the water is worn out of the art out of the rock. So it's really something else. But people pile up these little piles of stone and tie the ribbons on the trees with the messages for the Fae and for luck, and I'm not sure what it all is. But those beings, you go down there, and the Fae, the ones that love a party, that energy just excites them and thrills them, and they have such a good time. They love it. The ancient, more deeply rooted beings, the watchers, the protectors, those that are actually of part of nature, but part of the universe as well. They're kind of it's a different kind of species in a sense. They're sad and sometimes angry because people are coming down there and not getting it. It's not it's a sacred place with a lot of depth, not the not just the party part of it. Um, and that's what the saint was there for. He was tapping into that much deeper connection with the universal truth and wholeness, and it's not the same. Solstice at Stonehenge. It's an amazing experience, even though we left before the sun came up. Um, it's truly incredible, but it's another one of those things where um, the gods, for lack of better words, the the centers of ritual, um, the power connected to the place is disappointed and not happy because people don't get it. They're approaching it with a too superficial understanding of what it is, and they don't the energy matches that. It's too superficial, and they're making up a religion that didn't exist or did exist, but they don't really, they're creating their own version and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing that. And like I said, it was an amazing experience, and I'd like to go back again and do it and actually be there during sunrise. We did see the sunset and how it went through the stones, and it was really impressive. And a good friend of mine was there and had invited us to come, so that's why I was there. He's part of the Stonehenge. Um, he's one of the historians there. So, but these are energies that we feel, and we are also putting back into places. And so these places want that kind of energy that respects and fits what they are. And so I think so much of what we're looking at and what we're working on dealing with is putting out which is natural and appropriate um, for each place. And part of that is, I think, getting deeper and deeper inside to our core self, our core source, and our own personal oneness with that which is universal. Because we are all part of that. It's just that we're distant. And we're learning and going through our lifetimes to get back to it, and in a different way. These are all life lessons, they're soul lessons. Um, and they build up over different lifetimes. And between lives, we're not just sleeping all the time between lives, we're doing with all kinds of stuff. And everyone I've talked to on the other side is there, that between life is fabulous. And it doesn't matter how they passed or anything else. It's just healing and love around them and chance to do things that they have passion about, or helps chance to visit different realms, and come back and visit here. All kinds of stuff. So, and again, that's an energetic form, but it's a spiritual form as well. And it makes me wonder too. I'm wondering how much difference there might be with the spiritual energy compared to something else, or is it just a little bit of a well, it'd have to. I think it's just a. So I say it. No, I think it's a different energy. I think they work together. They can. Um, they can help empower each other. The spiritual energy and the normal that what's out there, at least coming from us, but they feel like they're a little bit different sources, and I'm not quite sure what that means yet. So that gives me more to ponder. Anyway, this isn't going to be nearly as long a show as so many of mine get to be. Um, I hope that you've all been able to get something to think about. Um, and again, I'm not asking anybody to believe me just because I'm saying this. These are thoughts and ideas that I'm working with. And, I'm putting this out there as a way to help, com- um, way to help people start a conversation within themselves or within others, and to see what they think going into the depths. And if people have comments back to me, I learn too. So, feel free to put those in the chat, um, if you want. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. The next show will be on the first Saturday of, and I think it's the 1st of June. And actually, that'll be another experiment. I'll be with a group of people in Sumter, Oregon, and we'll be at not the Sumter B&B. That the B&B people own the house that we will be in, but there'll be several of us. And I'm going to do a live from there with whoever wants to talk and just see what we're doing. And so, um, oh, and thank you so much, Katie. Katie's a wonderful person who listens all the time, and Eric and everybody too. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate the feedback and your kindness, everybody. So, anyway, that'll be the the next one. This one will be up before too long on Facebook and my YouTube channel. So thank you again, everybody. Enjoy and feel free to get a hold of me through Messenger or something if you want to keep the conversation going. Okay, bye bye.